Hi everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. Nice spring morning. A little on the chilly side here, a little 10:30 or so. Some clouds, some sun. Hasn't rained yet. Knock on wood, it is Oregon, could happen. So here we're looking at a stable of 82cc Challengers. You guys have seen the video from a month, 2 months ago, whenever I started putting this together, and we got to be faced with the reality that it may not happen in the spring as I had hoped, with the various things going on in the world right now. We'll see. I would love to be able to get together with TJ and a group of guys out there and make this happen. May end up being in the fall, who knows. But I was going through trying to clean up the shop today, which is a never-ending process, but I had these two guys down, so I thought, why not get 923 down. It's going to represent Homelight in this challenge. And it gave me an opportunity to admire my handiwork. Not to sound like a jack, but hey, I really am happy with the restoration that I did on this saw. Full paint and a bunch of new parts. I think the piston and the cylinder were just fine on it. I got this saw from my friend Hal. I did, and it was running. It was running good when I got it from him. I added some new muffler components and the full wrap handle. Pretty much everything else, I think, are the parts that I got from him. The saw, as it was, didn't have much paint on it, but it ran really good. So here we are, the Super Pro 81. You guys have seen cutting up on the firewood hill. I cleaned it up. It's got a newer starter housing on it now with a lot more paint, and I cleaned some of the garbage off the other side. So this one's looking about as good as it's ever going to. Right now the restoration bug has not pulled me into the max side. I don't mind owning some, but the thought of stripping one down and repainting it, I haven't gotten in that mindset with McCulloch's yet. The P51 you guys haven't seen cutting. And that's unfortunate. I forgot the camera that day when I went up to the hill. But I did cut. I cut some oak. It was live oak. Branch had snapped out of the tree in the last windstorm. And it was about yay big around. Man, you want to talk about a hot knife through butter. These Pioneers, I'm starting to see something that I can't totally explain, but it must be a trait that we've always attributed to Homelight. They don't rev that high, and you look at the maximum published RPMs, they're not really that high at all. In fact, they're several thousand RPM less than these guys here. But boy, I'll tell you what, this thing was tearing that oak a new one, like it just wasn't even there. Buck and Billy Ray, some of his new videos, he's got a Iron Horse P51 that's got a modded exhaust and God knows what else. Check out Iron Horse's channel too. But check out those videos. Buckin had a, what was it? Madrone. Big old Madrone with like a better part of 20 to 24 incher at the base, with a bar about the length of this one. And boy, was that P51 going to town on it. It was interesting. He pulled out a P52 that hadn't been modded, and there was just no comparison whatsoever. Now, I don't know if that P52 had other issues or if the P51 mods were really that good. This one is completely bone stock, and I will tell you, it puts a smile on my face to run it. So they're all ready to go. I'm not going to fuel them up. I'm not going to fuel this 923 up until I know it's ready to go. Some of my earlier restorations on these bonded tanks, I found that they weren't as fuel tight as I thought. You never saw fuel come through them, but vapors will come through. And I had a few paint jobs that bubbled right on those tank seams. And I don't want that to happen to this one, because this is a really, really nice one. Now, I can't remember. I did not line this one with red coat. And maybe that's something I should have done. But this was, again, one of my earlier ones, and I hadn't experienced that unfortunate phenomenon at that point. But yeah, so these are the competitors. Some impressions just sitting here. The bulkiest is by far this Pioneer. and also the heaviest, and that doesn't just account for the bar. The overall assembly of it, it's just a heavy saw. Now, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not one of these guys that's foo-foo about, oh, that saw weighs 20 pounds, it's going to kill me. No, it won't. It'll make you feel good after a couple of days because you'll build some muscle. But this one is bulky, just overall dimensions. It feels big, especially for an 82cc. The isolation works well. I mean, you can see the engine is completely isolated, but it's not loose. Those 6 big mounts that are down below, combined with what's up here, I mean, it's good. It works really well. I love the big spike. It's good for protecting the front of the saw, and it'll get through the thick bark on these west coast trees. Let's see. Yeah, starting it's easy. It's got the throttle safety lever, operator presence lever, whatever you want to call that. This one is a 1980 model, if I remember right. No, excuse me, 1978. So it's right there in the heyday of saws. This is a 1973 923. There's no vibration isolation on it whatsoever. It does have the compression release that's tied into the throttle lock. So when you depress the throttle lock, it's automatically operating the decompression valve there. I added the full wrap handle. That was an option that you could order them with or get for them. Didn't have it. Standard bucking spike, that's what was available for these guys. Obviously I repainted one of my bars with the Stars logo to put on here because it just looks cool. Manual oiler along with the automatic. The Pioneer does not have a manual override. It was an option. There's a drill hole up here. It just this one wasn't equipped with that. But that's where it would be. Your manual pump would be up here and operated by your left hand, which is an interesting technique. You don't see that too much on these saws with a manual override. Other than that, not a whole lot else to say there. The McCulloch is the lightest. I'd have to put it on a scale. It'd be close between these two. This one's definitely a lighter saw though. And that doesn't mean that it's not built well. This has got it's got an AV system. There's your main mounts up here, some down below, and one way at the back here. And it also is solid. I mean, it's not as solid as the Pioneer. I didn't get any operator fatigue running it, I can assure you of that. This also has a manual override on the oiler. Compression release is just down here. You push it in. When it starts, it pops out on its own. At least in theory it does. It has so far. Full wrap handle. Probably the tightest quarters of any of them in terms of clearance for your hand there. This Homelight probably has the best clearance. The clutch cover on the Pioneer is actually difficult to get out of there because of the full wrap handle. You've got a certain sequence. You've got to turn it, rotate, pull past the muffler. It's a pain in the neck. Definitely in terms of the full wrap handle spacing and where it's located, I like the Homelight's the best. There's plenty of hand room up here. It's just this falling side right there. So if you're doing a lot of falling, that might be an issue. I did get this muffler replaced with a better used muffler so that it wasn't, I had to put a bracket on the old one because this cover was just disintegrating. This one's still in strong enough shape that it'll be good for how much I'll use it. Let's see, the air filters are all top mounts. You do need a flat blade screwdriver to get to that one. These two just have the old knob style. They're all just a flocked, wire setup. So they all work just fine. The most radical muffler is far and away the Pioneer. They were very fond of this round port. Gives them a very unique sound. Almost like a boat motor on steroids, but they sound good. The home light is probably the quietest, but I again need a sound meter to test that. I suppose I could put that on my smartphone. I'm sure there's an app for it, probably 100 of them. What else? Fuel and oil loading. The wind's going to go to the Pioneer on that one. Both caps are right up here. Now, these Pioneers do have a tendency to swell their caps, especially on the fuel. Now, this one isn't terrible. I've lubed it up real good with some WD-40, but the plastic actually swells and it can be a real pain in the butt to get out of there. But location is perfect. You got easy access. Fuel on the home light is excellent right here. The oil is decent. It's close enough to the handle bracket back here that getting the jug in there and getting it started, half the time you end up pouring some all over the top of the engine here, and if it runs back into your air filter, it kind of makes a mess. The McCulloch, again, this is purely my opinion. I don't like either location. This one is so far back that you've got to have your gas can back on this side of the saw, and with a short spout it can be hard to get a good reach there. And I did notice that this damn tank gasket is leaking on this thing just ever so slightly. That was a super common thing on these McCullochs. Very, very common. And I'm not gonna gripe about it a whole bunch, it just is what it is. But this oil location here, you gotta turn it on its side, set it kinda like that, and then you still have a weird kind of angle where it opens up the possibility of dumping oil where you don't want it, and that's going to cause grease and sawdust and crap to accumulate, which reduces airflow, which is bad for an air-cooled engine, which these are. What else? The amount of plastic on these things. I guess the Pioneer has the most, and that isn't much, but the right hand guard back here is plastic, and this one is cracked a little bit, but that's the only piece of plastic on the exterior on this thing, and it's also the only saw that offers that right hand guard. All of this is metal. All of this is metal. I have no idea what the date is on this Super Pro 81. I'm sure there's people out there who know how to decode Mac serial numbers. I am not one of them. It's not a Mac guy. Home lights, you bet. Got that one covered. So, I don't know that there's a whole hell of a lot more to say about this. I wish it was an action shot. Pretty sure if I fire all three of these up in my front yard, my neighbors will have a whole lot to say about it. So, we'll save that for the hill whenever that day is, or TJ's place. But that's the update. Here are the players. If I happen to find another brand that I can afford and can get repaired and ready to run in primo shape in time for whenever this is, I'll do it. If you guys know of some 82cc models in the Husky or Steel line that aren't, again, priced like they're plated with gold, throw a comment out there. Say, hey, how about this model? I'll check it out, see what I can do. But the whole idea was to get what was available in the Pacific Northwest in United States in the late 70s, early 80s, the kings basically. And again, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Steel and Husky had really dented the market at that time. I think these guys were still the sales leaders. So anyway, that's an update on the 82cc challenge, and you've seen all the contestants. They're all ready to rock and roll. Let's hope that our fun little situation we have going with the world right now resolves itself in time for us to do this spring.